This device isn't a spaceship. It's a time machine. Goes backwards, forwards. It takes us to a place where we ache to go again. It's not called the wheel. It's called the carousel.
It was the best time of our lives.
Yo, yo, yo. Okay. Good timing for this episode. I have with me today King Salmon, the old King Salmon. Welcome to the show. This is the first time you've been on the show. So welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. You
are a person on Substack. I'm trying to get rid of this stupid logo. There we go. Let me put my logo on here. You are a Substack whore. And you recently published a piece called Descending that I really want everybody to read. It's actually, I sort of had skimmed it before, but today I actually listened to it, which is actually how I digest everything now. I listened to it like with the Substack AI thing, and it's really extraordinary. It's an extraordinary piece, and it's a piece about you leaving Israel, and it's a very honest piece about how terrible Israelis are. But it's also not whining. It doesn't come off as whining and complaining at all. It comes off as a very sort of deep, understood piece about Israel, about Judaism, and those issues. And I really, really suggest everybody read it because it's short and it is like heartfelt and really good. So obviously all anybody wants to talk about now is Jews, Israel. And, for a very obvious good reason, when you initiate a war against a massive nation like Iran, you better fucking expect people are going to be pissed about it. And I think the issue that is facing the sort of American Jewish chicken clucking factory is just, what does this all mean? Does everyone hate Jews now? Are we supposed to support Israel? Are we American? Are we white? What is going on right now? It seems like everybody suddenly hates us. If we think about where we are right now compared to compared to before October 7th, it is unbelievable. It's unbelievable how quickly the paper tiger of people being afraid to criticize Jews disappears. And what I want to talk about is this article published by Alana Newhouse, the editor of Tablet magazine, that seems to be going viral, titled Zionism for Everyone, which is addressing all of these issues. So anyway, this is all coming to a head right now, and you are the absolute perfect guy to come and talk about these things because you wrote this really beautiful essay called Descending. So where should we start, King Salmon?
Well, I'd start by saying thank you for the kind words and thank you for the invitation. And I guess let's dive in.
Okay. So let's start with the Alana Newhouse piece. So what is she arguing in this article, Zionism for Everyone? I'll put it up.
So I would summarize it as kind of, they hate us because they ain't us. It's kind of like it's an argument that like Zionism is a national movement of the Jewish people to reclaim their ancestral homeland, so on and so on. And basically the reason why everybody's so obsessed with it right now is because, she opens with this line from Welbeck's Submission, which if you've read it, it's a book about, it's a dystopian future where France is conquered by, Muslims and is ruled by Sharia law. And there's this French guy who's like, he's dating a Jewish woman, and this Jewish woman makes Aliyah to Israel. And he's like, well, I don't have an Israel to go to. Well, and then so she writes like, well, yeah, because it was France. It used to be, but you let it get fucked up, and that's on you. So she's basically making an argument like, you all can shit on Zionism all you want, but the reason you're shitting on it, if you dig deep enough and realize, is because you're all just deeply envious that we have our own ethno state, and you all just want your own ethno state that you have allowed to be diluted by mass migration. And well, that's your fault.
Fuck, is that really true? Is that what I sort of got halfway through it. Is that really what her final conclusion is? I was thinking her conclusion was going to be everybody should be more Zionist, but seriously, she's just saying you're fucking jealous of us. Is that really her fucking conclusion?
That's the gist that I got. I mean, maybe I'm just reading that. Maybe I'm reading too far.
Alana. Not a good idea. Not a good idea.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on who your target audience is, right? Tablet is a Jewish magazine, right? Their tagline is, it's a Jewish magazine about the world.
About the world.
So
great taglines in history. Right? No, I understand why their tagline is that. It's because they're trying to say it's a Jewish magazine. It's not a Jewish magazine about being Jewish. It's a Jewish magazine about the world. I get why they say that. It's actually a clever line. Okay, so what's your take on this perspective of Alana Newhouse?
Well, I mean, full disclosure, I am, in fact, a Zionist. I do, in fact, support the right of the state of Israel to exist as the national homeland for the Jewish people, despite the fact that I spent 13 years there and decided it wasn't my cup of tea. But I do still remain deeply, tied to the place culturally, linguistically. My family's there, so on and so on. So I'm in support. I think that a lot of the things that Alana writes in this article are reasonable claims. A lot of Europeans are thinking things along the lines of what's happening to my country. So they're looking at Israel. I think it's important to separate kind of two issues that get conflated. One is Europeans looking around and saying to themselves, what the hell is going on? And two, what I'm claiming and what I think Alana is claiming to be traditional anti-Semitism kind of projected into anti-Zionism. And they're not the same thing, but they get conflated very often. And that's part of the reason that everybody's talking about Jews in Israel all day long, besides the fact that, there's a war going on and there are bombs flying around in the air, is exactly because of that conflation. So they're not completely and totally separable, but they're also not the same thing. So it's important to keep that in mind. And she's just trying to navigate that boundary with this article, which I think was done effectively, but
navigate the boundary between Judaism and Zionism?
Well, the Jews, qua Jews, and Zionism as the movement to support the state of Israel. In other words, what you term Judaism as a religion, as a system of beliefs, is kind of an anachronism, it's a word that was invented to describe the things that Jews believed around the 19th century. Jews have been around for like 3,000 some years, right? The number keeps changing between 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. I don't know what the real number is. I don't really care. Bottom line is Jews have been around for way longer than the word Judaism has existed. And so to try to capture what Jews are in the word Judaism is really kind of, it's like stuffing a whole world into a shoebox. Like it doesn't fit. It just doesn't work. There's way more to it than that. Like, you can say things like, are bagels Jewish? Are dreidels Jewish? Is Israel Jewish? Like these are not straightforward questions. But my point is Jewishness, I guess, is probably a better word to use. Jewishness is much, much bigger than just the narrow definition of Judaism as a religious system of beliefs.
Sure. I mean, that's obvious though, right?
Well, not to everyone.
Nobody now thinks that Judaism is just a religion. I don't think anybody. Does anybody still think that?
I grew up around a lot of Jews in the United States. And so for the first time when I moved away for college, I met somebody who had never met a Jew for the first time. And she like her face lit up. I distinctly remember this experience because it was so jarring to me. She was from Boise, Idaho, and she'd never met a Jew before. And she's like, "Oh, you're Jewish? Oh, wow. Does that mean you celebrate Hanukkah?" Like that was the one thing that she had heard about Jews. And she just it was just like I was like an alien. I was like a foreign creature. Like I don't know. It was just a very bizarre. And she was positive about it, like she was interested to know about it, but it was just like a very like, oh, you actually don't know anything about Jews because you've never met one, and you've never had the opportunity to ask them like, what's your Jew thing all about? So yeah, there are a lot of people who legitimately don't know anything about Jews, and they just think they know things about Jews based on what they hear or read online, and which may or may not be true.
So are you a full 100% Jewish?
I am.
And did you grow up in any particular level of religiousness? Or
I mean, yeah, I grew up kind of like half in, half out. And what I mean by that is I grew up, I was born to Israeli parents who lived abroad in the United States. I grew up in the Reform Jewish Day School movement.
Oh, okay.
And so I kind of had an association with that just by virtue of being in the day school system, but I never really found myself to fit in. I think we might have dropped off.
Hey, sorry. Hello? You there?
Yeah, we lost you for a minute.
That was really weird. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Reform Jewish day school system, and then I kind of eventually came to realize that Reform Judaism at its core is essentially assimilationist maximalism. Yeah.
Pure evil.
It's pure evil, sure. Yeah. I wasn't a fan, to be frank about it. And so I kind of went in the opposite direction. Zionism being the.
So you were born to Israeli parents, but in America, if I'm understanding. And you grew up Reform with Israeli parents in America.
Yeah.
But even having Israeli parents is a little dubious anyway, right? Because I mean, how long could they have possibly been Israelis for? Like 5 minutes,
they were
right? Like
they were born and raised there. Their native language is Hebrew. So,
So they were born and raised in like the very nascent state of Israel.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then they came to America for whatever reason.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Interesting. That's an interesting combo. But yeah, cool.
Yeah, but the point is that I basically grew up between these two worlds. Like I was an Israeli abroad. I was in this Reform world, but I didn't really identify with it. And I kind of had to look for myself. And in my mid-20s, I kind of packed a suitcase and was like, I'm going to Israel to figure this out. And that's what I did.
Okay.
And lasted for a decade.
So you stayed in Israel for an entire decade. Wow.
Yeah.
And then you wrote this incredible piece about called Descending. And the reason that the piece is called Descending is because the word for moving to Israel for Jews is called Aliyah. It's let's make Aliyah, which means ascend, because you're ascending to the Holy Land. And then what's the other word for descending?
It's Yerida, which means to go down, to descend.
Descending. So you descended out of Israel. But what's incredible about your essay is you're saying something that very few Jews are willing to say, which is you have a great anecdote about a moment you had on a bus. Can you share that? Can you share that anecdote?
Yeah, basically it was already, towards the end of my stay. It was a couple of months out from the big move. And I had already made up my mind, like, I'm getting out of this shithole. I can't stand Israelis. They're fucking animals. And I get on this bus during rush hour and it's, packed like a sardine can. And these two old prunes like shove their way onto the bus before people can finish getting off. And, usually I'd hold back and I'd, keep my mouth shut because who wants to start a fight with two old women? And they shove their way on the bus with these big suitcases. And I couldn't help myself. I opened my mouth and I was like, couldn't you just wait for people to finish getting off? And one of them just like immediately starts screaming at me and it's like, who the hell are you? why should we listen to you? You're just a nobody. And I'm translating roughly, leaving out a lot of profanity, of course. But I'm just sitting there like laughing to myself, like, you fucking animals. Like, how do you people live like this? And
you know what's so funny about
Yeah.
that is that anecdote is so, look, anybody who's ever lived in the third world at all, it understands this. It's the same thing in fucking Vietnam. The Vietnamese are a very together people, but something about lines. There's something with lines and waiting and that kind of thing, where, as you say, the crab bucket mentality of basically every different type of people on Earth besides white people and like Northern Asians.
Right.
None of them knows. I actually don't know about South Americans. Maybe South Americans are okay at this also, but
I have
or
no
like
idea.
Mexicans. Yeah, Mexicans I guess are actually pretty chill about this shit. They're not like really annoying. But there's this crab bucketness that really expresses itself in like lines, and in Asia it's the same thing. In Asia it's like somebody will just cut an entire line and just be like, act like it's not a big deal. And there's something in like the white Anglo being that is so enraging. It's like it enrages you to such a huge degree.
Right.
But
well, I mean, it's go ahead.
No. What were you gonna say?
I just think, like you hit the nail on the head. It's like it's that third world mentality. It's the scarcity mindset. It's like, if I don't run to the head of the line, me and my family are going to starve to death.
Right.
Which might have been true for most of human history. In most places,
and we'll get to why Jews in particular are like this. But the thing that really makes it Jewish, here's the thing that makes that story actually really Jewish, is not them doing that, because all kinds of brown people do this the whole world around. It makes it that they then have to go into, who are you? You're nobody. That's what makes it particularly Jewish. Because if you ever got mad at a Asian for cutting line, they'll just go, oh, they'll just kind of like fluster around and go away, Whereas if you do it to a Jewish woman, she will find something about your character to like crush you.
Yeah.
She'll try to destroy your very being.
Yep.
And that's what really makes it. That's what makes it particularly Jewish. That's
interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
There's this thing in the Jewish soul that is just undeniable, and I have it just as bad. I have it very badly myself, so that's how I know. Where you need to, it's dominate is not the right word. But it's like you need this it's like this rage. It's like there's this like rage at the world, you know, and there's this like rage of this feeling of, it's this feeling of being taken advantage of for some reason, or this like deep fear of being taken advantage of. And it's like people call Jews cheap. Jews are not cheap. The Dutch are cheap. The English people are cheap. They're cheap as fuck. They're horribly cheap. Jews aren't cheap. Jews just can't lose. They cannot be in a situation where they feel like they've been snubbed or somehow treated less than, like that drives them fucking nuts.
Yeah, and I mean, I mentioned this in the article. There's this Hebrew word friar, which literally translates to like someone who got gypped, essentially. No pun intended. It's somebody.
Right.
What does the word literally derive from? It derives from somebody who would visit prostitutes. Somebody who goes to prostitute is a sucker, basically, because they're paying for something that anyone else should be able to get for free.
Oh, is that friar? That's interesting. It's like John. It's like calling somebody a John, or like like a Rube or something. Yeah, basically. Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
So the question is, where does this come from? Where does that thing come from?
You know what the anti-Semites and the Jews agree on, right? It's the one thing that they can agree on.
That there's something wrong with Jews.
There's something unique,
deeply wrong.
Something unique about the Jewish people.
It's like what would a rabbi say? A rabbi would say, yeah, there's something wrong with the Jewish soul, right?
Right.
They would say you have a yearning. They would say there's something broken in your soul.
Yeah.
And also
But
an
there's-
anti-Semite would say that.
Yeah,
They would say that exact same thing.
But they like,
Yeah.
it's about the connotation, right? But like, they would say it in like, the rabbi obviously would say it in it, like, there's something different. There's something unique. There's something
Right,
that
exactly,
other, like all the other kinds of souls don't have this thing that the
Yeah.
Jewish soul has.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Mhm.
you know, you can spin it however you want, but at
Right.
least they agree on that.
Yes. And I think that's true. I mean, I think, again, I'm not going to say I'm not a Jewish supremacist. I'm not a Jewish chauvinist. Even though technically to be a religious Jew, just like any religion, you have to be, if you actually believe in the lineage, believe in the liturgy. But anyway, this is a different point.
Yeah.
But just to fill in what he's saying, what they teach you when you study with a rabbi is that the Jewish soul is for some reason yearning at all times for God.
Mhm.
And it's particularly yearning for God. It's yearning for God in a very particularly strong way.
Right. A particularly
Uh,
Jewish way.
yeah. A particularly Jewish way. And that the reason why Jews are so unhappy and so fucking miserable in their dealings with other people is that they're constantly trying to get to God and they can't fucking figure it out. And the solution to all of this is to study Torah and to follow the rules and to be a good person and to develop a relationship with God, which I fully fucking believe. It was 100% true in my life. I was a very broken fragment of a soul until I started studying Torah and started, practicing religion. And then I became a much, much better person. And
Right on.
and I think that's when I look around and I see Jewish misbehavior, I'm always just like, hey, Barry Weiss, how about trying to do the Torah a little bit? Like, how about you actually do that instead of trying to save Israel 24/7?
It's like,
Why not do the book part?
it's amazing. It's you a lot of anti-Semites will look at like all of the dropouts and be like, see what the Jews do, see how bad they are. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's like looking at all the, like,
Right.
I don't know, maybe it's not a good example, but like all the Harvard dropouts and be like, oh, I see what Harvard produces.
Look at these Harvard people. Right. And it's like, and the solution really is in the book. Because the book is all about this exact thing.
Yeah, it's all in
about it's about like Jews fucking each other over, killing each other, doing terrible things to both
Right.
themselves and others, and like how God punishes you, like for doing that. Right. So that's what's kind of so interesting about this. But beyond do you think that there's an argument to be made a little bit like, how black people have better bodies because slavery?
Sure.
Are Jewish people a little bit like, it's like the status seeking ones survive, whereas the Jew that owns the bar just gets killed in the Holocaust, right? Whereas it's like,
yeah,
I
I think
the grubby one is the one that survives.
I think there's definitely some truth to that. I mean, it's a very controversial line of thinking, right? That there was some sort of selection pressure on Jews, given the history of persecution and oppression and so on. Only the most, the shrewdest, the ones who were able to get out of it were able to survive. Like, there is something to that. I personally think it's plausible. I don't know if it explains everything about Jews, but it certainly does kind of feel true, if you know what I mean.
Oops.
So
There you are. You just cut off for 1 second. You said
Oh,
it
yeah.
feels true.
yeah, it feels rough, like a. It doesn't explain everything, but it can explain some things.
Yeah, of course. I think so tell us more about your experiences in Israel and why you left
Yeah.
specifically.
So, I mean, I should probably start with why I went there.
Yeah.
It was a young 20-something hero's journey, I guess you could call it. I was looking for myself. I was looking for my place in the world. I had just made the decision to drop out of college. I was studying at the time away from home, and I had just broken up with a girlfriend, and I was just kind of lost. And so I packed my bags, as I mentioned, and showed up at a family's apartment outside of Tel Aviv, booked a one-way ticket, and was like, "Hey, can I live here?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I just kind of slowly found my footing and built a life there. I ended up, after 13 years, I ended up getting married and building a career. I work in software, and eventually I got to the point where I realized, obviously I had grown as a person, and Israel had changed as a country simultaneously. So the person that had moved to Israel back when I did, I'm not the same person that I was, and Israel is not the same country that it was at that point. So it was kind of like a mutual, like, growing apart, I guess. And I felt like it was time to sort of start the next chapter. So I had sort of, things had started to get on my nerves more and more. I think I mentioned this in this article. I used this analogy of sandpaper, right? Like, at first you get off the plane and immediately, like, someone rubs your face with sandpaper and you're like, oh wow, that's so exfoliating, that's so refreshing.
Yeah,
um
that
and
was a great writing, man.
I
That was
appreciate
really
it.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, like, after a couple of years, you're like, all right, can you please stop rubbing my skin raw with this fucking sandpaper? And, like, the answer is no.
Yeah.
You just
They
have to
just
put
have
up
to
with it.
keep doing it. They have
Yeah.
to keep on.
Like,
Right.
Israelis are very abrasive people, and, like,
Yeah.
if you don't like it, then you should leave, is basically the response. So I did.
Yeah. I've always had very bad experiences with them personally.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. I'm sorry on behalf of all Israelis that you had.
Yeah,
this
I mean,
experience.
it's not, again, it's you can't blame an entire people, but
Yeah, I mean, full disclaimer, like, I have to say this, obviously, like, that I know some Israelis who are absolutely wonderful people. They're
Right.
gems of the earth, and I love them dearly. But, like, as a whole, yeah, Israelis are assholes, and I can't stand them.
Yeah, I've been in one street fight in the past 10 years. Actually, no, I've been in a couple, but I've been in one that I can remember where there was, there's these Persian Israeli Jews are everywhere in LA. And
Don't get
there
me
was
started
these
on the
two
Persians.
guys that we lived downtown in the Arts District, and we had this big door that, like, opened up to the alley. And there was these two little hustler Israeli, like, Jewish real estate guys constantly, like, on the phone outside, and they would, like, they figured out I was Jewish very quickly, and they would just walk into my house. They would just walk right in to the living room without being invited. And they'd, like, sit down and just start talking to me. And I was like, at first I was like, ha, this is, like, cute. And then it got really, like, not cute. It got really like, this is gross. And one time I was so hungover. I used to be a bartender at the Ace Hotel, and I would get home at 3 a.m. and, hammered. And then I would wake up and write all day, actually. And then they were like, they were outside at like 7 a.m, screaming on the phone, standing on our stoop for no fucking reason. Like, why are you on our, like, there's a whole alley. You're
so
sitting
obnoxious.
directly on our stoop. Why are you doing that? And I went out there and I was like, guys, calm down. And they kind of, like, went like that. Like, they kind of, like, pushed me off, and I just, like, couldn't take it anymore. And I just, like, fucking, like, got into, like, a full on fight, like, fist fight with two of them at one time. Yeah. And it was bad.
That's wild.
But yeah, and then I felt terrible about it later, and I would always see them, and it was really awkward, and violence is never the answer.
So
but,
here's the thing.
yeah.
Here's the thing. Like, you had this negative experience with these two Israeli guys who were clearly assholes.
Yeah.
And my question is, like, do you think that, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Like, is it because they were assholes, or is it because they're Israelis?
It was because they were Israelis. Look, it's true. Like, there's something wrong with those people, and it's again, it's not all of them, and there's something wrong with black people, right? I mean, it's like, if you go to the hood, you're gonna have very ridiculous experiences with black people.
Yeah,
that are gonna be,
especially if you're not black, right?
Right. Yeah, that are gonna be extremely unpleasant.
Right.
And it's one of those things, man. It's just a way that people are. I think the vast exception to this is white people, right? I mean, white people, it's more that everyone has these idiosyncrasies, basically, besides white people.
Right, because white
Eh,
people are like the
yeah.
only non-people, right? Like, you know, that famous
Uh,
graph. I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying it's like there's this famous chart of like, you know, identity and association and like in-group preference. And like every
Yeah.
group has like a positive in-group preference, except for white people who have a negative in-group preference. Like they actually prefer out-group,
Yes, they prefer the outgroup, and
which is insane, right?
well, and by the way, white people can be equally unbearable, and being around large groups of white people, even rich ones, can
Maybe
be
particularly rich ones.
really annoying. And white people have definitely a group annoyingness of their own that is fucking also unbearable.
Well,
But it's
here's my
very
question.
non-aggressive, right? It's very it's never this type of thing where, you know, there's this aggression, you know, there's this
Unless they're
need.
drunk.
Even then there's a sort of like it's not the same. It's not the same thing, you know?
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I mean, you obviously have a lot more experience with white people than I do. And when
Yeah.
you say white people, I'm assuming you're like, you know, let's narrow it down a little bit, like waspy kind of upper middle class.
Wasps, or, you know, the best way to experience this is to just go to Denmark. Just go to Copenhagen. Go hang out in This is what I say to every anti-Semite that comes on this podcast. Move to Denmark. You want to go live in the ethno state with no Jews and all white people? It's right there. It's Copenhagen. They have Lego. There's all kinds of stuff.
They don't have like Muslims praying in the streets there. I don't even.
Not
I just
really.
assume Europe is all like that now.
Not Copenhagen. I mean, they're like, I think more and more like Sweden has that. But in any
Okay.
case, go to the Netherlands. The Netherlands, yeah, and I think there's a bunch of minorities. But if you actually hang out with the Dutch are all total white people. And the
Yeah.
Dutch are fucking, after a while, they are so fucking grating, dude. It's not this. I mean, the Dutch are a very unique case because they actually are assholes. They're assholes in a totally different way, though. Like, I think the thing is, with Israelis, it's like personal. You know,
Yeah.
like with Israelis, it's like their need, they have to one up you.
Of course.
They have to win.
Well,
Whereas
everything with Israelis is personal.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, like they can't feel, if an Israeli gets in their head that you feel that you're better than them, they are going to spend all their time making sure that you somehow get taken down a few notches.
Yep.
So that you don't get to go around and have that thought about them. You know, like, and they will make it personal. They'll find you and make it fucking personal. You know.
So here's the thing. Like you only know Israelis as a minority, right? You're in Los Angeles. I'm assuming like every third person there is either Israeli or Persian or I don't know.
Well, yeah, I stay away from them, but it's easy to stay away from them though. You can get it. They're just in certain areas.
Yeah, they tend to clump together. But like Israelis are different when they're the majority. Like when you're in their native habitat, you still have assholes, but people have a different, like, that awareness of being a minority, which I think is a big part of why they act the way they do when they're in places like Los Angeles. That gets taken away because it's like, okay, well, if you know that everybody's going to act like that, it kind of moderates it raises the bar for being an asshole, because if everybody's going to asshole back at you, you're going to be like,
no.
oh, I better watch out.
It's like a perfect, wow.
It's a
like
nuclear arms race.
Training. Yeah, it's an asshole training ground. Marines.
Exactly.
It's the Navy SEAls.
Yeah, because you just know everybody is going to be the same back to you, so you watch out. Whereas, you know, if you are around a bunch of non-Israelis who are not you know, the same order of magnitude of aggression, you feel no restraint to act out and just be a dick. I think that's a part of it. That's one explanation. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah. So then how does that manifest itself? Like what kind of asshole Olympics are going on in Israel?
Well, I mean, clearly my bus example is a counterexample, right? Because they didn't hold back, but it could just be that they're a bunch of old prunes. And there is a generational difference. I mean, I would say that kind of behavior would be completely unexpected from somebody in their 30s or 40s. let alone 20s, unless you're in like you know, a shithole area where the third world crab bucket mentality is the most dominant one. But like there's a pretty strong cultural difference between, say, downtown Tel Aviv and like way out in the boonies where people are generally less, you know, lower socioeconomic status. We call it the periphery in Hebrew. It's like the literally the periphery of the country where things are just kind of more third world. So there is that difference. But you know, despite Israel being the size of New Jersey, there is quite a bit of regional variance in culture and attitude and religiosity and all those different metrics.
So you have a part, and this can bring us back to Alana's piece. You have a part in your really fantastic piece where you talk about at the deep core soul of every Israeli, there's this sort of voice saying, what if it doesn't work out?
Yeah.
And what's incredible about your piece is that you're doing this thing where you're kind of suggesting that feeling of what if it doesn't work out is related to the outward misbehavior of Israelis. Like it's kind of, they're not really separable. So do you think those two things are related? That do you think the fear that this is not really going to work out and that we're going to ruin it? Like, are they basically thinking, fuck, we're not going to pull this off?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is definitely an element to it. And I think it's almost like at a subconscious level, you know, like Americans, like it would be inconceivable to the average American that their country could just be erased, right? Like, okay, so let's say Cold War, Soviet Union, nukes, like, okay, they drop a bunch of nukes on New York and LA and whatever. America's a continent, man. Like you can't just sink a continent. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Well, you can get rid of Israel. Like it's technologically feasible. You know, if you nuke Israel enough, or even if you drop enough conventional bombs, you can turn the place into a non-viable shithole pretty quickly, basically overnight. So and that was, you know, that was a legitimate fear. That's a legitimate existential fear that a lot of people had and continue to have. And it was true in 1948, and it was true in 1967, and it was true in 1973, and it continues to be true until the present moment. You know, I've got family members who are, as we speak, sitting in a bomb shelter.
Wow.
That last night they got woken up like 3 or 4 times because of incoming ballistic missiles. I myself had this experience over the summer. We were still in Israel during the last Iran war, and I'm sitting in there with our 6-month-old baby in a reinforced concrete room, listening to air raid sirens go off at 3:00 in the morning. Jesus. And I'm like, holy shit, you're waiting for the boom and you hope it doesn't land near you. That's literally, if that's not existential fear, I don't know what is.
Wow.
And it fucks with your head. It really fucks with your head, even in ways that you don't necessarily expect or can predict.
But do you think, though, that's where the assholishness comes from?
I think it's partial explanation. Again, like these things are not monocausal, right? There's a lot that goes, like there's the whole Jewish soul thing, which is absolutely true. There's the whole existential fear. There's this whole, like, what if it doesn't work out? And additionally, what if it's our fault?
Right.
There's a book in the Bible about the destruction of the Second Temple, and it's a very poetic, beautiful, and tragic book about how God is not mentioned in that book at all. It's read every year on the traditional holiday of the 9th of Av, which is the Jewish month of Av. Lands usually somewhere in August. And Jews basically, the tradition is Jews sit on the floor and they read this book. And the book is basically an account of the destruction, and it's very graphic, it's very visual. And the whole book, the premise of the book is like, we brought this upon ourselves.
Mm.
And so there's a long-standing tradition in the Jewish psyche of, if something terrible happens to us, maybe it is actually our fault. Maybe it's because we didn't, keep the commandments like God told us. Maybe it's because we fought amongst ourselves. Maybe, the Roman Empire is not mentioned once in the Book of Lamentations, even though it was them who totally destroyed Jerusalem, right? Like every historical account corroborates this. But in the Jewish account of the destruction of Jerusalem, it's the Jews' fault for getting into
Right.
a civil war. So it's sort of like
And this is the Book of Lamentations.
yeah. In Hebrew, it's Echa, which is Lamentations. It's like the Hebrew word literally translates to how, as in.
Is this
how did
not
this
part
happen?
of the Tanakh?
It is. It's part of
This is one of the first 5.
No, the Tanakh is Torah, which is the first 5, Nevi'im, which is prophets,
Okay.
Ezra and Jeremiah and all those guys, and then the Ketuvim, which is the writings, which is like the book of Esther that you read on Purim, and Lamentations is one of them, and Psalms is one of them, and
Okay, so Lamentations is the story of the destruction of the second temple by the Romans,
yeah,
or the first temple, second temple.
Second Temple. I'm pretty
Oh
sure.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, and
because that's after the Torah, obviously.
it's after the 5
Torah.
books. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's way later.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah, and like the bottom line is basically, we I think we talked about this earlier about agency, right? Like the whole idea behind the book is sort of to try to preserve agency, because if you can blame yourself for something bad that happens to you, then the logical conclusion is that, well, maybe if I did the thing to cause the bad thing to happen, then in the future I could do something different, and then the bad thing won't happen.
I think Lamentations is about the destruction of the first temple.
Okay, I could be wrong on that. Yeah.
So there's some, whatever. Somebody has to keep us straight on this, but so I think, but So the larger point is like, so for somebody like me, when I'm seeing all of this, Stephen Smith has us right here. I think there's like, for me personally, seeing what's happening with Jews right now is very much Book of Lamentations, because it's like there's I have been astounded by the Jews around me, whether it's my family or friends or whoever, their like total inability to accept criticism at all, right? Or to not as an individual, but as a Jew, right? Even lefty Jews, right? Even your most New Yorker ass lefty Jew, right? Who loves criticizing Israel, right? He's going to criticize Israel all day.
Right.
There's a total inability to see the interests, the self-interests of the Jewish community as negative ever, right? And that's the complete, and of course I have this divide in my brain, in the center of my brain, because I'm half Midwestern WASP, which is like the most self-denying, congregationalist, basically communist brained white person, you know what I mean? Who's like, we are nothing, our interest doesn't matter at all. They're like, nothing could be more abhorrent to my father's family than like ethnic self-interest.
Yeah.
Like that is like the most disgusting thing to them. It's low class, it's evil. It's, that's why it's like everybody says, oh, the post-war order Nazis. The Nazis are abhorrent to Anglos, because Anglos are a sea people. They're a mercantile people. They're very mercantile. They don't like being, they have no blood and soil pride at all. That's just not in their fucking nature.
Right.
Like even in the heyday of the British Empire, it's not like there was a lot of like English nationalism going on.
No, it was like explicitly anti that.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of like, hey, we just want to do business. Like we're doing business, like that was kind of their vibe. And so it's funny because it's like the two polar opposites. Like on that side, it's saying anything good about white people would be just like, no, ew. Whereas on the other side, you have the Jews, and it's like saying one bad thing about Jews or Jewish behavior, it's like, oh no, sir, you cannot. You're feeding the anti-Semites. The anti-Semites are going to hate us no matter what we do. You can't cow to them. You can't, what?
Well, it's a lot of it is a fear, exactly like you mentioned, is feeding the fire of anti-Semitism, and particularly when
And you mentioned that in your piece. You mentioned you say that.
Yeah,
so how do you deal with that? Are you like afraid that you're doing that, like fueling anti-Semites?
I mean, not really, because the kind of people who are going to read my article are the kind of people who like there's very little overlap with people who are going to actually read and engage with what I write and write comments that say you're a fucking Jew. You know what I mean? Like if that's your, like, that's what I wrote. And it's basically, if this is what you're inclined to do, like, please just see yourself out, because I'm not interested, and it just doesn't matter. And like, there are those people, and they are on Substack, and it's shitty, but we live in the real world, and that's the way it is. As a lot of people call it, there's like low IQ anti-Semitism and high IQ anti-Semitism, right? Which are both legitimate things that exist, and they are in fact different. So, if a high IQ anti-Semite wants to read my piece and tell me what they think of it, I'm very interested to know. But
yeah. So I guess, where do you think this is all going? To return to Alana's piece, the thing that I think is why your piece is so illuminating is, like, if Alana's point is you're just mad that you lost your own nationalism, which again wasn't ever there, really. Maybe for France a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you know French people? Like, they're super.
Yeah,
French.
True. They are. That is true. They are much more like nationalistic than the English.
All your points hold up well for Anglos. I wholeheartedly agree with everything. Not
necessarily French, and certainly not Germans, right?
Not Germans. Germans are super German, especially if you get them drunk. Oh man, I'm telling you, they are very German, way more German than they're willing to let on when they're not drunk.
Yeah, and the Danes and the Dutch are the Dutch are basically Anglos, but they Dutch would never ever admit one iota of supremacy. They would never admit it, but they definitely enact it.
But they feel it.
Yeah, they feel it.
Yeah.
The only people in the Netherlands that would ever admit it is like a total hick farmer,
right?
Which would be like the smartest person in America. But it's like it's a total. Those are the only people who admit the slightest bit of Dutch nationalism. But at the same time, they say the most difficult. Here's the total opposition. They say an Israeli is a huge asshole, but they'll invite you into their Shabbat dinner the second they meet you. Right.
And they write this in the article. It's true.
Yeah. They say the hardest club to get into in all of the Netherlands is a Dutch person's house for Christmas. Like, you are never getting that fucking invite. It's they totally keep you separate.
Not surprising.
So it's like they actually enact it. But I guess Alana, the thing that she's saying is, like, you all just kind of wish you had our level of nationalism, or like ethno-state pride. Mm-hmm. And sorry, you abandoned France. Okay, Stephanie Wakefield is saying the Alana place does say Israel is a model for everyone.
Right.
Okay, so, but again, like, is it?
Maybe.
I mean, Israel's currently, as you're saying, it's a pretty unpleasant place to be.
Well, let me be clear.
Ugly, it's pretty gross, and it's barely hanging on, and everybody there is terrified that it's going to disappear at any moment. Let me be clear
about one thing. Israel, for all of the criticisms that I level at the state of Israel and life generally there, if you put Israel on the scale of unpleasantness from 1 to 10, along with all the other countries and all the other places in the world you can live, I would still put it around like a 7 or 8 out of 10 pleasantness. Like, the weather is good. There's a lot of sunshine. The women are beautiful. The food is delicious. Some drawbacks: it's super expensive. Sometimes there are bombs. Sometimes there's terrorism. But like, you compare it to fucking, I don't know, Congo or
even an Islamic.
Yeah, Lebanon, which is right next door. Like,
I don't know about Lebanon, but what's wrong with Lebanon?
I don't know, Hezbollah. Like, they've completely turned it into a base.
Yeah.
I would much
I mean,
rather,
living under fundamentalist Islam sucks because
especially
it's,
if you're
I
not
mean, it's worse than
fundamentalist.
communism. It is it's like communism times 10, times 5.
Yeah,
You know, there's
basically.
no art. There's nothing to do. You can't do anything. You just have to, there's literally nothing to do.
And
You just
also
sit
that-
around and like smoke cigarettes and have sex with boys.
I don't know how much you've traveled in the Islamic world, but like I've been to some places. And
Don't kill me, Islamic faction. That's a fucking joke. Okay, you can make fun of Jews as much as you want. All I'm saying is the fundamentalists. I love my Muslim brothers. I love all people, but all I'm saying is those cultures that are fundamentalistly Muslim, which is not all of them, but like the hinterlands of Morocco.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of vibrant life going on. It's pretty much prayer and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I have not been to the hinterland of Morocco, but I would imagine it's probably pretty fucking boring.
Yeah. It's not fun. Like that type of Islam is really like pretty smothering.
Yeah.
You know, it's a smothering force in terms of day-to-day kind of like the beauty of life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but like, again, I just want to emphasize this point. Like, yeah, I level a lot of criticisms at Israel in this piece, but all things considered, if let's say tomorrow, like America kicks all the Jews out, okay? Probably not going to happen, but maybe. Where would I go?
There's no
I would go to
fucking
Israel.
way that's going to happen.
But I'd go to Israel. Like, what else would I do? There's nowhere else I'd rather go.
Yeah.
Given all of the shit and all of the things that I mentioned, again, you know, it's a place with a lot of problems, but it's sort of like, you know that saying is like, you don't love your children because they're smart or beautiful or academically, or like you love them because they're yours, you know? And
But
so
is this is what I don't really. Israel has been ours for 5 fucking minutes. It's it's been ours for no time.
in the grand historical scheme, yes.
I don't know what happened back in the day or why the Jews, for whatever reason, stopped being a militaristic people and stopped having. I don't really know why they lost Israel. Why did they lose Israel?
Well, that's a whole can of worms.
Why did they lose it in the first place?
I mean, the first temple was destroyed because the Babylonians were bigger and stronger than them. That's basically it. And so, like, the Babylonians went around blowing shit up and raping and pillaging, and they got to Judea, and they're like, okay, well, we're just going to keep doing the same thing we've been doing to all these other peoples, and all the other peoples essentially assimilated into the Babylonian Empire, except for the Jews.
I see.
So the real question is like, why didn't the Jews assimilate? And the answer is because the Jews are different.
They're assholes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then the second temple was the Romans.
Right.
And the Romans, and then after that, then what happens? When did the Jews actually leave the geographic region of Israel? Do we know that?
Well, it's contested historically, but the general archaeological evidence points to what is currently today the land of Israel, the historic kingdom of Judea and the northern kingdom of Israel, was majority Jewish until around the 2nd century of the Common Era. After which point, it either there were incursions by the Romans. Of course, they destroyed the temple, and then there was a mass exodus. After that, Christianity started gaining a foothold, and then fast forward a couple more centuries, Islam started gaining a foothold, and over time, what was once a Jewish majority became a Jewish minority. There's always been a Jewish presence in the land. There's always been Jews living in places like Jerusalem and Hebron and the north and the Galilee. So it's not like Jews entirely, completely disappeared. They just stopped being the majority and they stopped having political sovereignty until 1948. But yeah, so the answer to your question of why did the Jews leave? It's because they got kicked out. And
why did they stop fighting? Because there were thousands of years of Jewish actual military. Right. I mean, I know that even, of course, there's a story of Saul and Jacob. Who's Saul?
Possibly.
It's not Saul. Esau. Esau's brother is Jacob. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Jacob and Esau.
So there's I read the sort of like Hasidic illustrated Tanakh. Not or what's whatever the first 5 are. Just the first 5.
The Torah. That's the Torah.
The Torah. Yeah, there's a different name for it though. It's like the Midrash.
The Midrash is the sort of the
after
commentary.
That's after. Yeah, that's the commentary. I can't remember. This was the Chumash. I think it's the Chumash.
Chumash.
Yeah. So the Chumash.
Yeah.
I read the Chumash with my daughter.
So that's the Torah. That's the five. But
it was like it was great. It was like the illustrated like super Hasidic one.
Yeah.
So it's like it's got all the hardcore Hasidic interpretations of everything.
Yeah.
And there's this moment between Esau and Jacob where Jacob goes off one direction, Esau goes off the other direction. Of course, they're fighting, and Esau sort of becomes, in a way, the father of the Gentiles, of the Goys, and Jacob becomes the father of all the Jews. And they say at that time, at least the interpretation in the thing, and that must come from the Midrash actually, is that the Jews will be the people of the word, basically, right. And the sons of Esau will be the persons of the sword.
Right.
So even dating back then, there was this idea that Jews are basically like a non-violent, like they're not really a militaristic people. Even
right.
That's that interpretation. But in those eras, there were wars and stuff. The Jews were actually fighting.
Of course.
Yeah. And then they go a very long time without that at all. They basically become this totally non-violent group.
Yeah.
For a very long time. And I don't know where that happened or like how that happened, right? All I'm saying is it's like Alana's piece is sort of, I know, for like a soup, for lentil soup, red lentil soup. It's pretty good. The food is good there. No, so Alana's piece is sort of like this thing of like, oh, Israel's a model. Israel is not really a model for anything, right? I mean, it's not going very well. As you're saying, there's this fear. I don't really think, do you think Israel will survive in this format?
Well, I'll put it this way. Whatever happens going forward in the next century, there are going to be Jews living in what is today the land of Israel. Whether they have political sovereignty, whether they have a military, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do know that there will be Jews living there.
Definitely.
In some fashion. What kind of life they're going to live, I couldn't tell you. But again, the Jews went back home and they're going to stay there. That's as far as I can tell. That's non-negotiable.
But as you said, there have been religious Jews there for like a very long time. But and you're right. They're never going to dislodge them. They will just, you'd have to kill every single one. Yeah. Which you're not going to do. I mean, it would be basically impossible, because they're so committed to what they're doing. But those people aren't really the ones, they're not manifesting the state of Israel.
Well, they weren't up until very recently. I think October 7th. I mean, you interviewed Baruch about this.
Yeah. Yep.
And he, he's a good guy. He's an interesting guy to talk to. He's one of those guys who you're talking about, who's basically, he's not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, come hell or high water, like the state of Israel collapses tomorrow, IDF is completely disbanded. He's not moving an inch.
He's stand put. Yeah.
And, there's something to be said for that. And there are a lot of guys like Baruch. And I think a lot of people don't realize that whereas people who think like him today might be a minority, them and the Haredi Jews are the only ones who are having like 3, 4, 5, 6 kids a family.
Yes.
So demographically, they're going to become the majority in a very short order of time.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that they're going to co-opt all of the institutions of the state, you're very mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's true.
That's an inevitability.
Well, and that would be a good thing. In my opinion, that would be a good thing. Do you think that would be a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it would turn Israel into like a way more based ethno-state. Would it be a good thing? Well, it depends on your perspective. I think it would make Israel much more resilient and willing to fight for itself. I think it would make it a lot less likely to have these sort of like, nebbishy Woody Allen type of Jews talking about Israel. It will definitely strain the relationship between American Jews and Israelis. Like, they'll continue to grow apart, and they might not even have anything to do with one another for most intents and purposes. But the flip side of that is like, if you want to make it in the Middle East, you got to play by the local neighborhood rules.
That's very well said. And I'm having this is like dawning on me right now that if that was allowed to happen and you just let the Haredi do their fucking thing, that would match the tenor of that part of the world so much better. You know what I mean? It's like it would be much more extreme in terms of its Jewishness, but actually that would be probably respected a lot more by the local milieu. You know what I mean? Than
I would think so.
Like the globo homo state of fucking Israel is. You know?
Well, yeah, look, when you get these Israelis go on and get interviewed on the news or on podcasts or whatever, and they're talking to an American Jewish audience who's generally, liberal, left, highly educated, doesn't know that much about Hebrew or Judaism or any of that stuff, and they want Israel to be like this, kumbaya kind of place where anybody can be whatever they want, which is like, okay, maybe in some neighborhoods of Tel Aviv, sure, but the rest of the country, even today, is not that, like, at all. Is Israel, like the real Israel? I hesitate to use the phrase "real Israel" because neighborhoods of Tel Aviv are just as real Israel as anywhere else in the country. But like, the people who serve in the military, the people who are infantry, the people who are like driving tanks in Gaza right now, like, my former boss, okay, he's a dude whose family moved from Yemen to Israel like a couple generations ago. They've been in Israel for like 3 generations now. He has 2 kids in the military who are infantry commanders who spent the better part of between 24 and 25 in active combat in Gaza. And they would come into the office every now and then when they got off duty just to like get lunch with their dad. And they'd come in uniform and they'd bring their guns with them. And like, I got to talk to them for a little while. Like, how's it going? Like, what's going on over there? And they would tell me these stories that are like, holy shit, man. Like, this is legitimate, actual combat, like door to door, urban combat, literally digging through tunnels, looking for hostages. These are Jews doing these things, and it's like, it's so distanced, it's so divorced from what like Americans or even American Jews think about Jews. And like the way, what you were talking about, the whole military aspect of why did the Jews stop fighting? Well, you meet one of these guys and talk to him for 15 minutes, like you realize, okay, I guess they're back. Mm-hmm. Jews are fighting again.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's kind of a inertia thing. It's like the longer you do it, the easier it'll get. It's, the longer it goes on, the more that culture will sort of set in place, right? And it's funny because Herzl, the founder of Israel, or the founder of the Zionist movement, was super inspired by the Prussians. He was like a Prussian fanboy.
Right.
And the Prussians were, of course, also the inspiration for Hitler, ironically enough, because the Prussians were like just a militaristic people completely. Right. Like they were like the modern day Spartans. Everything was just for war.
To be fair, the Prussians were, have you ever met a Prussian? Like, there are no Prussians today.
Exactly. Where are the Prussians today? Okay.
So the Prussians, like Prussia was a state, right?
Yeah.
And it had a culture and it had institutions.
I think it was Berlin, though. I think they were the Germans, right? I think Berlin was the capital of Prussia.
Yeah, they were Germans. I think they were German speaking. But yeah,
they were northern, like up into the Baltic states. I think that was Prussia.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, first of all, Herzl was a secular Jew, right? He was not familiar with Hebrew. He was not familiar with religious Jewish practice.
Right. Yes.
He had come from a family of secular Jews who had been secular for several generations, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
And I think, if you talk to Israelis today about Herzl, if they even know who he is, they might not. Like, the Israeli education system has completely tanked, by the way, which is a travesty in and of itself. And that's a whole other area of discussion.
Why is that? Why is it tanked?
Long story short, a combination of COVID and then incessant wars has led to Zoom school, and everybody knows how effective Zoom school is. So, and it wasn't doing so great to begin with. But anyway, yeah. Okay, Ariel Yari corrected us.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. but his parents weren't, which is important.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, about Israeli education, like they might have heard of Herzl. Every city in Israel has a street named Herzl. But like, did they know who Rav Kook was? Did they know who Moshe Hess was? Do they know who Nordau was? Like, there are a lot of other so-called founders, quote unquote, of Zionism. Like before it was a state, it was just a movement. It was just a bunch of Jews who were like, how do we answer? What is our answer to the Jewish question? Right? This question started being asked, like, what do we do about the Jews?
Mm-hmm.
And there were several different answers that were kind of, competing with one another. There were the assimilationists, which ended up becoming the Reform movement. There were the nationalists, which ended up becoming the Zionists. And then there were the Haredis, who were kind of like, the Amish of the Jews, who were just like, we're just going to build our walled communities and speak Yiddish and do our thing and just leave us out of it. Those are kind of like the three general responses, right? But anyway, I'm rambling.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, I think just the question remains, I think the thing that we're trying to dig out here is Israel an example for anything? If Alana is telling everybody, you're just wish you could have the ethno-state nationalism of Israel, is that true? And because we were sort of talking about this yesterday, it's so funny that the brand of the Jews for 2,000 years has been, again, this nonviolent people of the word, where the rest of the world was warring with itself forever. And we're kind of on the side, hey, we'll come in, we'll come in and out, like, never fighting for themselves, never, just kind of like, we don't want to get involved. While the rest of the world had war every day. War was a part of everyday life. Right. And then, suddenly, like 80 years ago, that stopped. And war stopped becoming a part of everyday life for 99.99% of people. I mean, it's amazing. Of Europeans. Yeah, of Europeans. It's amazing to, even most people now, right? It's like even the Asians. Of course, Africa is the big exception, but it's like, if we imagine the pilgrims, it was like, a pilgrim, you woke up in the morning and like, okay, there's like a 25% chance you get raped and killed by an Apache, or whatever, whoever the Indians in Plymouth Rock were, Yeah. Like we have this, it's incredible. I have this WASPy family. We have our thing that goes all the way back to the Mayflower, right? And these are extremely civilized people. And there's like a little description when you get way back then in the 1600s of what each person did and like who they were, like, they came from here, they did this. Yeah. And there's one dating way back that it was like participated in quelling King Philip, who was an Indian, King Philip's revolution, and placed his head on a spike and hung it over Plymouth Rock Colony. Like it says that. And this is like 300 years ago. Like,
right, not that long ago.
Imagine your dad being the guy who like put King Philip's head on a spike and like hung it outside your door. Wild. Like that was the norm for people every single day of their lives forever.
Yeah. Violence was like everywhere all the time, constantly. Right. Yeah.
But the Jews were kind of sitting it out forever.
Yeah.
Now the Jews are the only ones doing it. Now like they're the ones living this primitive, violent life, and everybody else is like, "Whoa, chill out." They don't have anything to do with it.
This goes back to what we were saying. Like a major tenet of Zionism is or was to become a nation like all the other nations, right? It's like, well, okay, here you go. Yeah. That's what you wished for. Here you go. Now you get to fight wars.
Now you get to fight for it. Right. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, it's really true.
So so you got to be careful what you wish for, I guess, is the lesson in that.
But the thing is, do you think that Jews are a parasitic people?
No, I don't think that. I think that people who think that are anti-Semites. I think that I think that the Jews are a unique people in history. I think that the question of how did the Jews survive all of the things that they've been through is a legitimately interesting question to ask, and I don't know the answer. But suggest that the Jews are a parasitic people would imply that the Jews don't produce anything of value, and I think that that's manifestly untrue. I think that the Jews have produced a tremendous amount of things that are valuable to the rest of humanity, not least, the Bible, for one. Not to mention all of the disproportionate influence and representation in scientific endeavors, in fields of math, in the fields of science, as I mentioned. To say that the Jews have not contributed anything is bullshit.
Well, nobody would say that, right?
Well, if you say that they're
even the worst
parasites,
anti-Semite wouldn't say that the Jews haven't contributed anything. I think what the anti-Semite would say is it's not worth it, right?
well,
They would
I mean, the Jews are explicitly portrayed as parasitic in a lot of anti-Semitic literature, right? What is a parasite? A parasite is an organism that takes but does not produce. It is a net negative.
Well, but so those are two different things, though. A parasite and a net negative are two different things. The net negative argument drives me fucking insane. And when people make that argument, it infuriates me so much because it's impossible to argue against because it's utilitarian. Mm-hmm. If some anti-Semite decides that, oh yeah, there's some good Jews, there's some bad Jews, but on balance, they're bad. And they'd have a negative impact. If they make that decision, there's absolutely no way to argue with it. Because they've in their minds, they've done the calculation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Of course, that's utilitarianism, which is bullshit. You could do that with everything in your life. Is your family, are they better or worse for you? Oh, the second they're worse for you, bye. Right. Let's kill them. It's like, that's just not how life works. It's not an Excel spreadsheet. It's not a fucking Excel spreadsheet. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's not to say that there aren't huge criticisms to be made and huge things to do, but you don't just kill people because they on balance, they're worse.
Let's extend it to like the Somalis in Minnesota, right? Right. Do you think they should kick out all the Somalis? I think it's a reasonable proposition. I don't know if they should or not, but I'd need to do a little more research, but it's not, it's worth exploring. I'll leave it at that.
It's tough. It's a tough one. Should they kick out all the Somalis? But if you have to say, if you're going to be okay with them kicking out all the Somalis, you kind of got to be okay with them kicking out all the Jews, right?
Right. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Do you want to just start rounding people up and deporting them? I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But to get back to your question, about Alana's point, her proposition of is Israel a model? I think it can be a model for some things. I think France, for example, to go back to our favorite example that we keep harping on, France could use a lot more ethno-nationalism than it has today. If France had a sort of strong, France as a nation has produced a lot of good stuff, right? Their claim to fame is, the whole Enlightenment and all the ideas that they put out into the world, some of which are good, some of which are terrible, but, we'll leave Rousseau aside. But the French should be proud of what they've produced and given to humanity. And if all they want to think about is how bad they've been because of colonialism and all the other, bad stuff that they inevitably did, okay, if you want to be guilt-ridden and driven into oblivion as a result, that's your prerogative. But the result is you get conquered by barbarians, right? And that's why she opened with the Welbeck line, which is, I don't have France to go to, or I don't have an Israel to go to, where it should be France. You know what I mean? So if France were more like Israel in that regard, I think it would be good for France, and I think it would be good for the world. So
it's not going to happen, though. That's
probably
the
not.
Thing. Did you see Yarvin's recent thing where it's like they're not gonna rise up?
You're probably right.
He got in trouble because he was like, they're going to send 100 million people to your house and it's going to turn into South Africa. You're not going to do anything. I don't know if I necessarily agree with him in that sense, but I appreciate the sentiments. that whatever this disease is that has allowed the West to become suicidal and that has allowed white people and WASPs to die and completely give up everything, you know, whatever that disease is. And it's everywhere, by the way. It's in it's in Japan. The disease is called the Jews. No, whatever disease, whatever that fucking disease is. I don't think there's any way to really, you can't like think your way out of it. You know, it's not, you're not going to like, everybody has this idea of Thomas Paine, you know, during the revolution where Thomas Paine's this like basically an anon and he's riling people up. You know, he's got his pamphlet and they're riled up to you know, fight this actually pretty arbitrary battle against the English. You know, they're very cheap. You can't they can't tax each other. You know, and so everybody thinks that that's what's going to happen, that somebody's going to write a pamphlet, you know, well, and then everybody's going to get it. Everybody's going to one day in France be like, oh yeah, you're right. I don't think that that's going to happen.
Here's the thing. It was like, okay, you might be right about France. You might be right about the Anglos. I don't know if you're right about the Germans. I don't know if you're right about the Czech. I don't know if you're right about the Hungarians. Like
the Poles, right? The Poles are hanging on.
Yeah, the Poles are like the most based country in Europe, right? Like they're all just
well, that's because they refused to apologize because they had nothing to. They got fucked worse than anybody, right?
Yeah, that's their big thing.
Yeah.
Which, you know, depends on how you interpret it, but we'll leave that aside. The Poles made a decision, as did the Hungarians, that, you know, we're not going to let it a bunch of barbarians who are not like us. No, like we're going to build a wall, we're going to build a fence, and we're going to shoot people if they try to cross it. And I don't know if you've been to Budapest, but like it's a beautiful city. It feels like Europe because you see Europeans everywhere. And I don't mean it is Europe. Yeah, it does. I don't mean white people. I mean Europeans. It feels European. It looks European. The architecture, the buildings, the food, the churches. It's, you know, and I was in London relatively recently, and London does not really feel like Europe anymore. Like we got off a tube stop and it was fucking like Afghanistan, like women walking around in hijabs and people talking in Arabic, like selling kebabs on the street. Like it did not feel like London. It did not feel like Europe. And that's scary. That's scary. That's a loss of something. That's something that's being taken away.
See, to me, it's deeper than that though. It's not, the problem is not that London looks like Afghanistan, which it does in certain places. The problem is that London looks like an imitation of itself. I was just there. London is hollow. The brown people taking over the street is a symptom.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these places are killing themselves for some reason that we don't understand still.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
I would propose that the reason is guilt. It's guilt. If you are so beset with guilt over genocide, colonialism, you know, all the things they accuse the Jews of doing, right? It's pure projection. Then that's enough to commit civilizational suicide.
But it's not, I don't think it's that either. I mean, not to argue with you too much, but I don't think it's guilt. I think it's financialization. Yeah, I feel like it's what it is there's no, you know what's happening in London? This is a great example. There is this issue with queuing at pubs. Mm-hmm. So pubs in England is like the whole thing. And it even more than ever. Now it's like pubs are like that. We're doing pubs. Like this is an English pub and we have the food and it's a meat pie. Like they're really, really trying to hang on to these pubs. And pubs, the whole thing is you go to the bar. This is like, you know, this is everywhere in the world gets this from the English. You go to the bar and you kind of push your way in and you get a drink and that's the whole fucking dance, right?
Right.
Now people are queuing, making a line to get to the bar.
I think I saw you
Which-
write something about this.
which
Yeah.
people view as like deeply anti-English.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and you know, no matter how like woke you are, people are infuriated about
Okay.
like people queuing at the pub. Why are people fucking suddenly queuing at the pub? Why?
Yeah. That's a good
There's
question.
some answer to that, and it has something to do with monoculture. It's something to do with this low common denominator monoculture that's just like infecting everything in the fucking world.
Oh, you mean global homo?
You know, global homo, right?
Yeah.
It's fucking global homo.
Yeah.
And that force is so fucking powerful. And I don't think that we like even understand it really fully yet. But
Well, I think the fact that it has a label is a good
Yeah.
first step.
global homo.
Because I
Great.
said it, and you were like, "Oh yeah, exactly. That's it." Like you know exactly what I'm talking about. I know
Well,
exactly what you're
global
talking about.
homogeneity. You know, I mean, it's like it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be global homosexuality. It could be globo. You know,
Right. It's intentionally ambiguous, and it can mean both of those
Yeah.
things.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
And I think going back to the whole Zionism for everyone argument. If you go to Israel, yeah, there's a little bit of global homo in like parts of Tel Aviv, but you go outside of Tel Aviv, like there isn't any. It's gone. Like people don't even know what it is. It's very, very not present in most of the country. And I think that that's appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, somebody's asking about a T-shirt. Is this Protestant? Yeah, my T-shirt is from my favorite coffee shop, but it is pretty like designery. I don't know if you're being serious. This guy who's asking questions. Okay, fine. Let's finish this up.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen to this period? Jews are hated 7,000 times more than they were 2 years ago. We all know that. It's on the tip of everybody's fucking lips. You can feel it in the fucking streets. You know, where is this going to go? Are we going to get a break? Are we all going to have to move back to Israel? Are you going to have to move back to Israel? Where's this all headed?
Well, let's give Barry Weiss some credit here. She did get one thing right, where she described the last 70 years as a holiday from history. Europe and America felt bad about the Holocaust, and they were nice to the Jews for about a couple generations, and that's over. Like everything's going back to normal now. Like the whole world is going back to hating Jews like they always did. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to genocide the Jews, but it does mean that they're going to exclude us. It does mean that they're going to ostracize us. And ironically, it's going to have a very strong effect on Jews, assimilated Jews, realizing, like Alfred Dreyfus did, oh, they're never going to let us into their club. If you know the whole story about Dreyfus, people who are listening who are not familiar, he was a French military commander who was accused of treason. And Herzl was actually observed. This is the story, and it's contested, but this is the story, at least, that Herzl observed the trial, the Dreyfus trial, and he was like, "Holy shit, the Enlightenment is never going to work out for Jews. Let's go make our own state." That was like the radicalizing moment for him.
Right.
So I think a lot of Jews are going to have like a radicalizing moment. In fact, I think I know personally a lot of Jews who have had that realization, where after October 7th, after all the people were like, chanting "globalize the Intifada" on their college campuses, they're like, holy shit, I'm always going to be the Jew. Might as well start wearing my Star of David necklace.
Yeah. It's huge in LA right now.
Yeah.
All the Jews are like, every time I go out, like 4 of the guys I'm with they're wearing their necklaces. I'm like, that's really funny. Because they're kind of say,
Personally, I don't have to do that because like I'm Jewish looking enough where I can walk through the park and like the Chabad guys, like they'll skip the first question because they just know.
They just go right in.
They just, did you put tefillin? I'm like, obviously, they don't even ask. So like, I don't need the necklace, but like, some Jews, they want to identify and they want to identify publicly, and yesher koach, as we say, like, more power to you.
I would say the answer is God. The more I talk about this and the more I see it, and actually you really made something click in my head about Israel earlier. It's Israel only makes sense if it's Haredi. That's what it deserves. That's what's not fake about it.
Yeah.
All the fucking gay shit is fake. And that's what pisses people off.
Yeah.
If you had a bunch of Haredi praying all day and having 17 kids and expanding, but being their weird ass autistic fucking selves, I don't think the Muslims would give a shit. I mean, maybe they would a little bit, but like they'd probably be like, "Oh yeah, those guys are a lot like us. Like they're whatever, like leave them alone." I think the thing that pisses people off is it's the entanglement of Judaism with globo homo.
Yes.
That's the problem, and
Yes.
it's like
That's the problem, and the solution is,
the
as you
solution, but the
say,
solution isn't nationalism; it's God, and that's always been the case. The solution in the Torah, or maybe not always, but at least in the Torah, the solution is always stop worshiping the calf. Right? It's always go back to the book. It's
Right.
not go back to the nation.
right,
You know, that's kind of what it seems to me to be
Well,
the. Sorry, go ahead.
there's a lot to that. I think that's a very solid point. And I think a lot of Israelis, secular Israelis who never stepped foot in a synagogue in their lives, are coming to that conclusion. They're realizing that Yuri Bezmenov, the Soviet spy, that viral video that was recorded in the 80s. What does he end with at the end of the day? He talks about religion and God. He says any civilization that survives, the only way that a civilization can survive, and he's absolutely 100% right about this, is to believe in God.
Wow, is that how he ends that? That's
Yeah.
great. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, and I think he's 100% on the money.
Yeah, I think that's the way forward, and it's not think pieces will only get us so far if you don't read the book. It's so ridiculous for me to be telling anybody to read the book. It's like I am the worst example, but even the little that I've got from studying, not even Torah, studying Tanya for 5 years, and this is like once a week at the best. But also going back and reading the not the Torah, but reading even just the bits of it that I have from the illustrated stuff I've been reading my daughter. It has completely organized things for me, and I think that that's kind of what is to me like missing in the Jewish discourse, is like either you're a complete religious person who's completely sectioned off, or you're like a cultural Jew, and it's like one or the other. It's
right. And well, I think it says a lot that you're drawn to Chabad, and you've been learning specifically with Chabad, because Chabad is one of the only religious Jewish organization that does outreach, right? They try to reach people who have not had the experience and the learning and the immersion that religious Jews who are brought up in the culture have grown up with since day one.
Well, they're the only people that'll have me, man. I couldn't go to
that's what I'm
Reform.
saying.
Like Reform wouldn't have me. I'm way too fucking racist. And the real Jews wouldn't have me. I'm a fucking Michelin, unclean. I don't do any Jew shit. So this Chabad's my only option. But it's really been fantastic. Do you have a practice now at all?
I would not call myself observant, but I mean, there are a lot of commandments. Having a family is one of them. I have a family. I do I do Friday night, dinners. I say the Kiddush. Like I do that. I learn. I study. That's a big Jewish commandment. So no Jews do none of the commandments, and also no Jews do all of the commandments. So everybody kind of lands somewhere in between on the spectrum. That's kind of how I see it. And I think Chabad is to borrow a globo homo term, very, very inclusive in that regard.
Yeah, well, and that's what really, it was horrible. I was Tucker, on Team Tucker against, and all my friends who are Jewish were like, no, bad, Tucker bad. And I was always like, he's not so bad. And then, of course, he has to go after Chabad.
Right.
Like,
that was
the line. I mean, you got to have a line, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have some line. I'm not gonna keep supporting him after that because
well, that was Tucker's strategies. He continuously raised the volume, getting closer and closer and closer to touching the third rail until he was finally just he couldn't hold it in anymore. It's it's the fucking Jews. It's always the Jews. And I saw it coming from a mile away, as did a lot of people, but everyone's got that point where they realize oh, okay, I see.
Javier is telling me to accept the Lord Jesus into my heart. I'm not against Christians. What do you think of? Last question. What do you think of Jesus Christians? What do you think of that whole?
I'll share a short story. One time I was in college and I met a girl, nice girl from a Dutch girl. She spoke fluent Hebrew. I have no idea how she learned fluent Hebrew. And she invited me to a picnic one day. And so I went on this picnic with her and her friends, and they're all super nice. And like right before we sat down to eat, like she's like, let's say a prayer. And I was like, okay. And to my bewilderment and surprise, she said a prayer to Jesus the Messiah in Hebrew. She's one of these messianic Jews who I don't know if you've ever met these people, but like
Jews
their whole
for Jesus.
Yeah, but their whole thing is like they're Christians, and they specifically proselytize to Jews to try to save their souls. And I was like, oh wow, this is really interesting. Like I'm not on board, but thanks for the picnic. But my bottom line is like, regarding Christians, that's a big topic. I don't know if we can cover that in 30 seconds, but okay. I have nothing against Christians. Christians are A-okay as far as I'm concerned. Just keep the Jesus stuff. I'm really happy that you found Jesus. Just, I'm okay without Jesus. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, good to know. I'm like, whatever. We can talk about it. Next episode. Next episode we'll do Jesus. All right. Thank you so much, King Salmon. This was great. Everybody must go read this piece. Really a great piece of writing called Descending. We need a lot more from you, man. People need to know you could be a big Substacker. If you keep writing stuff like that, you could be a really big Substacker. More people just need to see your stuff. And you got to stop naming your stuff one vague word. That doesn't work because then nobody understands what the hell you're talking about. You got to tell people what it is, and then they'll read it. But it's great stuff, man.
I appreciate the kind words, and I will take it to heart.
Cool, man. See you later. Thanks so much for joining.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.